President Trump's campaign just about 2 hours ago sent out a notification that they are launching the Catholics for Trump coalition, saying that they've announced Catholics for Trump, a coalition committed to safeguarding the vital principles of religious liberty and defending family values that President Donald J. Trump has ardently championed. And a bunch of great Americans are here as a part of Catholics for Trump. And among them is our next guest, Senator Rick Santorum from Pennsylvania and a NewsMax contributor as well. Senator Santorum, always good to talk to you, sir.
Vince, great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
This is what does this tell the American people that President Trump is launching a Catholics for Trump coalition?
Well, it tells you that Donald Trump thinks he has a great record that can appeal to voters who are Catholic, who care about the teachings of the Church when it comes to moral issues being effectuated in Washington D.C. And what I said in my statement, they asked me for a statement. I said the choice is easy between two administrations. You've got it right there in front of you. Which administration, the Trump administration or the Biden-Harris administration, has had more fidelity to the teachings of the Catholic Church, and it's not even close. And so for anybody who calls himself a Catholic and actually tries to live their Catholic faith, this is a pretty easy call.
Yeah, and this has been true in each of President Trump's election campaigns. A core point is that if you're wondering who's going to defend religious liberty, it's going to be Trump.
Yep.
If it's up against Hillary Clinton, it's clearly Trump. She's the one who says that fundamental religious views need to change in the country in order to accommodate their abortion agenda. President Trump is the religious liberty guy. That was true against Biden. It's true against Kamala.
It's absolutely true. And that just obviously doesn't apply to Catholics, apply to anybody who wants to be able to practice their faith, whether it's the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, or Buddhist, or whatever the case may be. The only faith that you're allowed to practice without restriction is the woke faith, is the Marxist faith, is the faith that is this new set of values and principles that say that you can do everything that you should, that traditional values say you shouldn't do. All of that is protected.
Right.
But if you stand for traditional values, then you're going to be limited as to what you can say and do.
Now, all of this, I agree completely. Now, all this is not to say that President Trump is a perfect human being. Certainly none of us are. And I know Catholics in my family, my friends. Go ahead.
They crucified the guy who was the perfect human being. So, there's only been one, and none of us can fit that bill.
That's right.
I'm not out there saying that Donald Trump's a great Catholic. He's not Catholic. And,
it's true.
And so I'm saying that the man has stood for, and 4 years of proof that he effectuated change that are reflective of the values of the Catholic Church.
Totally right. And so I was just trying to get to this point, which is that, I've had conversations with my Catholic family members and friends, and some concern last week as President Trump was batting around the issue of abortion in a number of ways. He came out in Florida and said he's voting no on an amendment that would have allowed a very extreme abortion agenda to go through, abortion all the way through 9 months. He's voting against that, thank God. But he also indicated last week that he supports government-funded IVF procedures and mandatory coverage of those procedures. And you, of course, you and I both know that involves a lot of destroyed human lives, that particular procedure. And so here's two things here. One, I love that President Trump is open to hearing other ideas from the people who support him, and sometimes he changes his mind about things. And two, he is superior in every way to the Democrats' enthusiastic abortion agenda. Am I wrong?
Well, yeah. I remember when I first got involved in politics, the Clinton statement about abortion was the prevailing view among Democrats, which is safe, legal, and rare. Now it's not just safe, but it's and legal, but it's preferred. It's not only safe and legal, but it's after, they even have folks like Ralph Northam and others, Tim Walz in Minnesota, where he repealed a law that said if a baby's born alive as a result of abortion, you can kill the baby. I mean, this is how extreme they are. And Trump has been the candidate and the president who put Supreme Court justices in that overturn Roe versus Wade, that protect religious liberty. With respect to IVF, look, I'm not in favor of IVF. I think I agree with the Catholic Church on that, but I'm not out there criticizing. I'm not out there saying we should ban it. And I'm not in favor of actually what President Trump has suggested, but his motivation for this is that he believes that we need to have more babies. He said that over and over again.
Yes.
And I understand the motivation. It's not a bad motivation.
That's a great goal.
I think is a very good. It's a great goal. And I think that you're right. The point you made, which is President Trump, I think, is notionally saying we need to do more to allow folks to have children.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to working with him and making sure that maybe the provisions he's putting forward are more like the laws in place in Europe, where you can't just produce a dozen embryos with an IVF treatment, that you can only produce embryos commensurate with how many you're actually going to implant. And those are the kinds of things that when the government does step into this, as Trump is proposing, you might be able to get some ethical reforms of the process that result in less children being in storage, if you will.
Yeah. And by the way, my objections to it aren't just on the issue of life, which is the most important thing, but also the expense. I think just the idea that you would take something like that and put it on the taxpayer, $25,000 to $40,000 a procedure.
I hear you.
Not good. Not good. But that said, he is far preferable on this issue of religious liberty and far preferable when it comes to Catholics. So, like, for instance, Senator Santorum, the Biden-Harris administration has had FBI field offices who have decided to treat Catholics as extremists for trying to practice the traditional Latin Mass. This is the comparison we have.
It's really remarkable that someone whose desire is simply to go to Mass the way it was said for hundreds of years up until I was a child. I went to the traditional Latin Mass because it was the only Mass that was offered.
Right.
And the reality is that this is not a fringe or dangerous group of folks. These are folks who are, in many cases, the most reverent and ones who adhere most closely to the teachings of the Church. This is not a terrorist group. This any more than your grandparents in the 1950s who were Catholics were terrorists. The reality is that these folks scare the left because they are, in fact, strict adherents to their faith. And they're willing to fight for their faith against people like Harris and Biden, who are trying to undermine the values that faith teaches. And that, to me, should deliver a very clear message that the government is aligning against people who uniformly oppose them and their political views. That's a dangerous thing to see happen in this country.
And it really, one of the messages from the Biden-Harris administration is they want people of faith to be ashamed or quiet about what they actually believe. An example, a lot of examples of this include like sending SWAT teams to the homes of people who stand outside of abortion mills and are merely praying or singing church hymns, and then prosecuting them and throwing them in jail. Ask Mark Houck what that's like. Ask the people who are literally singing church hymns. I know you have. I'm just saying, just generally, it's just like there's a super clear contrast here.
Well, you have the government prosecuting people who pray in front of abortion clinics to protect human life because their faith calls them to do so, and not only do they get arrested, but they get prosecuted and they get convicted and they get thrown in jail. Where you have folks at Columbia University right now who are protesting in favor of terrorists, in favor of people who are anti-Semitic, killing Jews, and they're out there destroying property, not praying, not being orderly, but in fact doing violent and destructive things, and they just run them through the turnstiles and they're right back out on the street. This is the kind of country that you're going to be looking at. Those people are going to be in charge versus a country that wants order and a return to normalcy.
Yeah, I totally agree. When it comes to Catholics who are out there and who may be contemplating who to vote for, I'm not sure you could even make it more clear than you have to begin with, Senator Santorum. But it sounds to me like you're urging them to go in there and pull that lever for Trump this year?
Well, again, if you want to be able to, people don't realize how much religious liberty is at risk. You look at other countries, you look at what's going on in Europe, in Britain, in France, and people's right to exercise a religion is in fact being limited. Canada, there are hate speech laws and things like that that are specifically targeted at Catholics and Christians.
Yes,
that's a serious issue. That on top of that, you as a Catholic, if you just listen to what the church is teaching, you can't vote for someone who is advocating for children to be killed, not just permits it, but is in fact cheerleading for it, is in fact encouraging people to have abortions, that have abortion clinics outside their convention offering people abortions. This is a culture of death,
yes,
not a culture of life, and Catholics can't vote for that.
And they're taking your money to fund it. That's the awful
That's the
thing.
other thing.
Yeah, it's just truly awful. All right, well, Senator Santorum, I'm glad to see your name on the list, and I hope you can continue to have some influence there with the Great Trump Campaign to help them out on this effort, Catholics for Trump. Thank you very much. Good to talk to you, sir.